Welcome to another episode of my Motortown Tuning Guide. This time around, we are finally getting to where the rubber meets the road, talking about tires and wheels. There is quite a few things to get into here, and also a bit of false information that I believed for the longest time and now finally researched in detail. Also helped that I managed to confirm a few things with the Milk Bandit on Twitch because he is one of those tuning pros, far better and more knowledgeable on the topic than myself. But in the end, I'm one of the more knowledgeable people in general that is willing to make videos like this. Doesn't mean that I'm the best for the job, but I'm the best willing to do this. So you are stuck with what you get, I guess. But yeah, let's get into this. First up, a quick amendment to the last video. Wheel spacers can have a profound effect on the handling of regular cars. I completely underestimated that. Basically, it depends on the type of vehicle that you have, front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, and where you install them. On a front wheel drive vehicle, putting the wheel spacers on the rear might help make them more stable so they don't swing out their rear all that much. Installing front wheel spacers on a rear wheel drive car might make it more stable at high speeds. So there are quite a few effects here that you might want to consider. And for all-wheel drive, I don't really know. It might be a mix of the both, might be the opposite. Once again, a lot of this stuff also comes down to how much you're willing to experiment. But yeah, let's talk about the tires now. And honestly, there is quite a bit of stuff here that I could be talking about, but it's also quite obvious. We have a few different characteristics for these tires, and to be clear, these are all available for regular cars and pickups. But yeah, stuff like grip is kind of self-explanatory. They start with 105 for regular tires and go up to 108 for performance tires, so the increase in grip isn't really all that drastic. Low profile and high profile, the difference should be in the tire thread. Theoretically, high profile tires should be better in the rain. I haven't tried to confirm that, so no idea. But basically, any regular car that I buy, if I wanna put it on the road, it's getting the low profile performance tires always. But yeah, when it comes to grip, of course, sideway tires, they are meant for drifting, they have much lower grip. And so do the off-road tires. It's basically, with off-road tires, it's a trade-off. You take a bit of a loss in grip, and it's kinda quite significant for a huge off-road bonus. From what I've seen hosting rally and rallycross events, off-road tires are often dismissed. They feel so much grippier on dirt roads that it can sometimes even be a problem if you're used to drifting around the tight corners. If you drive it with the off-road tire equipped, you might just drive straight into the inside wall because they are so grippy. But they are often worth the trade-off. May depend on your circumstance. For example, if you don't have that much grip on the road already, if you're struggling with that, it's not a good idea. But if your main problem is that you can easily drive on the road and it's working out well, but you are spinning out every 10 seconds on the dirt, off-road tires might be for you. I had that especially with some of my Fortem builds for Rallycross. So can recommend them. Don't sleep on them too much. They are a game changer in some races. Also, the same applies if you are going for an all-terrain vehicle build, like an all-terrain taxi, all-terrain ambulance, or that kind of thing. If you are good on the road, then having the off-road tires will definitely increase your off-road capabilities quite significantly and might be the difference maker between getting a job done or having to abandon it. So definitely worth considering here. Sideways tires obviously for drift builds, however I can offer you guys at least one example of me using that for something completely different. Well, I usually just go for performance tires. There is one big exception here, and I think that's worth talking about as well. I'm talking about comfort, taxi, limo, that kind of thing. Let me get in there. Because on this taxi, since it's a Monarch and I'm definitely not using this as a dragster, you might be off quite well if you just do something like this. I got sideway tires installed in the front and KM165s on the rear. Could also go for the 45 option. I don't know really if there is any difference. Once again, I didn't test for that in particular. But these are working out really well because in the end, when it comes to doing comfort fares, often I would rather break my tire grip than breaking a comfort point. So this is more like a safe, like a fail safe, allowing me to, or more like keeping me from doing sharp turns, but in return making it much easier to keep the comfort points high, because I'm not just one flick of the steering stick away from losing the point, because just the car won't react that fast anymore on these tires. So might be worth considering. The reason why I'm not using sideways on the rear is because they really want to drift then, while this is still giving me some rear stability with the regular tires, but decreasing the steering inputs enough to make this far more palpable on the front. So yeah, weird combination, but has been working out really well for me, so I can recommend this. Might be a bit of a problem because this is now also on the workshop in that shape, so anybody not expecting this might be in for a bit of a surprise, but hey, you can see the configuration when installing the stuff. Make sure that works out for you. But yeah, another quick thing I want to talk about here is for anything that's not a regular car or a pickup truck. There are some exceptions, like bikes have their own tires, the Terra has its own tire sets, and there might be some others out there. But for the most part, buses, trucks, mid-duty events like the Kira stuff, they are all using the same set of tires, and I'm going to quickly talk about them because that's at least another type of tire that has some options. Bikes and the other stuff that I just mentioned, they are not worth talking about because there are no second option there. You get that one bike tire, you get that one tire option for Terra's front axle, another one for the rear axle, and that's what you have to deal with. But this one, for a lot of vehicles, there are at least theoretically a few options. Not always worth considering the heavy capacity tire, because that has slightly less grip. But overall, yeah, that's basically the trade-off that you make here. You get the basic tire with 0.95 G, heavy load capacity tire with 0.92 G, and the difference in load for the regular wheel is 5 to 8 tons. I think on the dually wheels for the rear, that's gonna be 8 tons by default and 12 tons for the upgraded ones. So yeah, if you're building something specifically for heavy duty, the heavy load tires might be worth considering. But overall, well, let's be clear. On the front tires, you don't need heavy load tires because all of these trucks so far, everything that is in the game, be it a rigid truck with the cargo hold on the back, be it a semi-tractor with a fifth wheel on the back, be it a wrecker that of course has the underlift and everything on the rear, only the rear axles are ever going to be heavily loaded. Front tires can always be the regular ones. I installed the heavy duty tires for the rear axle here, but even on this one, if we look at the load that we get with these tires on the two rearmost axles, 8 tons per wheel, that's 16 tons per axle. Always keep that in mind. It's nice to compare that using the load stations whenever you're loading something or driving in and out of one of the harbors. You get the reading. Worth considering if you are good with your regular type of tires or you need the other ones. But yeah, 16 tons per axle, 32 tons on the rear in total without the lift axle. That's usually pretty good. Given that this thing also weighs a whole lot, so gotta keep that in mind. But yeah, I put on the heavy capacity tires, but for most of the jobs it's likely overkill. And in the end, I mean, the grip isn't all that much of a difference, so I didn't notice it, to be honest. So yeah, I can recommend using either of them. But the thing about tire usage right now and tire wear in specifics, that really depends on your load right now. I can take one of the lighter cars and just drift around the entire place here just for an hour or something, and I will barely notice any tire degradation. While when I go with something heavier, all of a sudden it's going to be much, much worse. And that's something actually worth pointing out with these tires as well, because they have that problem. Every single tire here has a max load of 700 kilogram. So that's 1400 kilogram per axle and 2.8 tons in total. And with a lot of vehicles not being balanced evenly across the front to the rear, heavier stuff like the pickups, like the Muhan, the Tavern, especially the Tavern Ambulance, you are going to run through your tires quite quickly just because they are going either too close or already over the max load per axle, and that's just unavoidable, sadly. I've been asking for a heavy load tire for regular vehicles for quite a while, and I think right now the reliance on that single one factor is actually quite ridiculous with how much it determines. Because once again, drifting the light cars, you can do that forever, it seems. And no matter how much rubber you leave on the road, you're just still going to have so much left. And tire changes during races, even ones that are like 2 hours long. Remember, I did that one race that was like 1 hour 40 minutes. Didn't even come close to needing that. So, yeah. That whole thing is a big factor, and therefore the tire mileage overall as well. But, I mean, you don't want to just put on sideways just because that for some reason they have incredible mileage. So, yeah, might be worth considering maybe the regular tires over the performance tires for that. What is that? 23% additional mileage that you get out of them. Anyway, enough about the tires. There's really not too much to them, he says after 13 minutes. Let's talk about the wheels now, and this is where it gets potentially a bit complicated. I did a lot of testing myself, and what I figured out is quite interesting. On this car, I installed an open diff and two rear wheels that are the same weight, but one of them is obviously a bit more narrow than the other. And it turns out, in terms of grip levels, these are identical. Wheels don't change the grip levels. Physically, they have a fitting collision box compared to what they look like. So a more narrow wheel isn't just going to randomly start floating when you go over an edge or something. It's going to be appropriately going up that ledge compared to its width there and exact location. So that's all working out, but there is zero difference in the overall grip. I did a bit of testing. I confirmed with the Milk Bandit in order to be really sure about this. But as long as the wheels are the same weight, they kinda handle the same as well. So with me having an open diff, If there was a grip difference and I do a burnout, you would expect there to be much more tire smoke, much more burning out happening from the right side here on the thin tire than on the other one. Of course, tire compound is the same in both examples here. But yeah, it's really not the same. There's a bit of a difference here because I turned a corner. But if I maybe avoid that pothole over there. They start the same with the same intensity, and they also kind of stop at the same time, pretty much. Again, this isn't perfect lap results or anything. So it may vary a bit, but in the end, yeah, they overall are the same. It gets a bit more interesting when we're talking about tires of different mass. Because in the end, the way tire grip works, we get it shown in G's. So that's Earth's gravitational pull. And that's really only giving us a force to have our grip with if we multiply that by a mass. And putting more mass on the wheel that's really the entire game there. So you want a good amount of mass from for example, the engine, from the downforce, and also the weight of the tire itself makes a difference. So if I go into the next car, we have a different setup over here. Open diff once again. Tires about the same width, but this one weighs 50 kilogram, this one weighs 15. If I do a bit of a burnout, you can immediately see that the heavier side isn't leaving that much of a tire mark here, and that is because it doesn't spin out that much. Of course, adding weight is going to make the car a bit more sluggish overall. That's more weight that you need to accelerate, that's more weight that you have to work against when you try to take a turn, when you try to use the brakes and everything. On the other hand, this is also about as low as you can have the additional weight, so might be advantageous for your overall center of mass. But yeah, this is all to say that you should really experiment with how heavy you want your tire to be. Lighter isn't always better. Really depends on your situation. And you might be able to get more out of a slightly more heavy tire. And it really depends on the vehicle that you're driving and what you're using it for. For example, this one is actually a dragster, so I'm going to keep the heavy tire on both sides once the video is over. I'll also reinstall the closed diff here because I kinda don't need it to be open. I want my tires to spin at the same rate most of the time. But yeah, this is what I found regarding all of this, so it's interesting. What I found regarding the narrow tires, though, when it comes to giving a bit of a problem, we just went through a few potholes here, and that might be where the wider tire can shine. For example, if you drive exactly on this line right here, you can see that there is a pothole that breaks the line twice. And maybe on the second part, if we are on a slightly wider tire, it might not fall into the gap there and might just scoot over the entire thing. So that might give you a bit more stability. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, just note that wider tires are being considered by the game engine, by the collisions and everything, so there's a reason to use them. Also, just for the looks, I wouldn't want the entire car to be standing on 4 of these bike wheels, basically. Even if it's still giving me the same amount of grip. But you also don't need to feel bad if you wanna go with something a slightly bit more narrow that has a nicer rim design. So yeah, that's all working out overall. And as per usual, really the combination with your vehicle and yeah, all the other options there, you're gonna try things out. You're gonna figure out what's working the best for you, and that's not something that I can give you. I wish I could just say, always use this one, this is great. I can say that if you're just trying to make something work in general, the wheels aren't the most important part. You're already going to take the performance tires most of the time, and the wheels can just be something that you like. It might be a tiny bit better if you go for something else in the end, if you come back and maybe want to experiment a little bit, but it's not wholly required. I've done really well going for lightweight rims for the most part, and even though I'm now recognizing the advantages that come with heavier wheels, it's not a must. So yeah, figure out what works for you. With some of the off-road builds, I would definitely be recommending more getting into the heavier tires for a change, just to try that out. That might give you, yeah, just a more consistent contact with the ground compared to the lightweight ones. But you'll really have to see for yourself, and don't just fall for the wider tires. That's kind of a mistake here that I'm trying to not make anymore. Because I thought for the longest time that wider tires mean higher grip, and that's just not the case here. So take that as the central message for this video, and with that I'll say thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time for the finale with aerodynamics and brake balancing this time around. It's finally in the game. Until then, as always, have a good one, and bye bye.